back to another episode of the Ironclad Report. If you don't know how this show works, we take an artist, we take a band, and we discuss them, and if they're still performing music, and if they are, where they are, what they're doing, what they're working on. And last week, or 2 weeks ago actually, I think we opened up the Frank Iero chapter in this, because that's what we're doing now in the show. We're taking one specific artist, and we're sort of talking about all the individual bands that they were a part of. So we did Device Forge, and Ghost, and MCC, and Subvision, all those bands. Now we're doing Frank Iero, and all the bands that he was a part of, or musical groups rather. And then I don't know who we're gonna do down the road, but we'll work that out when we get there. So My Chemical Romance was a band that was started out in the Newark, New Jersey area of the United States in about 2001. Their first album was released under Eyeball Records, titled I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love, in either 2001 or 2002. In late 2001, founding member of MCR Gerard Way, after witnessing the attacks on the World Trade Center in New York, influenced him to start a band, and he wrote the song Skylines and Turnstiles to kind of, I guess, bring out his sympathy for it, or something like that. The name of the band was inspired by a Irvine Welsh novel titled Ecstasy: 3 Tales of Chemical Romance, and that was suggested by MCR bass player and younger brother of Gerard Way, Mikey Way, in a Barnes & Noble bookstore that he used to work at. Ironically, funny how things work out like that. I love knowing the history of how bands got their names, and that happens to be like one of my favorite stories of how a band was inspired to get their name. In 2003, the band signed a deal with a new record label and released a new album titled 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, and toured around with Avenged Sevenfold. And they released 4 singles from that album: Thank You for the Venom, I'm Not Okay, I Promise, The Ghost of You, and Helena. Just over a year after the album released, it made it to platinum status, which I think is pretty cool for an album to do that in under a year, or just over a year. I mean, granted, there's probably albums that make it in less time, but, you know, whatever. It's the little things. In the year of 2006, started the production of the 3rd studio album titled The Black Parade, if you've ever heard of it. It only went double platinum. Band's first and only double platinum album, so I think it's fair to say that you might have heard of it. Kind of a popular album, kind of a big deal for the band, and I think it's still one of their most popular albums, probably, because, you know, everybody, I think that's their most influenced album, or their most discussed album anyways. So 10 years after the band split up and parted ways, they came out with a 10th anniversary release titled The Black Parade, Living with Ghosts album. And I think it was just a remastered version of The Black Parade, which goes to show you exactly how popular the band is, or how popular that album was, which is pretty cool to say. I mean, that's definitely one of my favorite albums by the band, is Black Parade. Definitely an influential album. I think it had a lot of potential. It did have a lot of potential. It was a very popular album, a very listened to album. I mean, if it hit double platinum, it definitely wasn't a bad album. So the band did an immense amount of touring while they were together. They toured with Green Day's American Idiot Tour and the Warped Tour back in 2005. They also co-headlined the Taste of Chaos tour with The Used before starting their own title tour called, wait for it, hang on, the My Chemical Romance tour. I know, right? And on September 19th of the year 2010, they announced their World Contamination Tour, which at first I thought was the World Combination Tour, which had shows in parts of the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Germany, and France, I think, to name a few countries. Might have been more spread out over the world, because, you know, world contamination. Definitely not Madagascar, though, because Madagascar cannot be contaminated. No matter how hard you try, it just can't be contaminated. They got their shit on lock. So I think one of the reasons why My Chemical Romance is one of the most popular emo bands to come out of the early 2000s or late 90s and early 2000s. And I think that because no matter who you are and where you're from, you can at some point in your life relate to the message that at least one of their songs carries. And that reason is also why I think that Linkin Park's music will forever be popular as well, because their music is also relatable, and due to the fact that everyone will at some point in their lives connect with one of their songs, I think has immortalized My Chemical Romance and bands like Linkin Park in pop culture history because of how their music is. Because it's not just music, it's a meaning, and music in general is definitely connectable. You can definitely connect with a certain song or a certain album or a certain band or a certain artist, because you look at an artist and you look at them and you can pick out one thing and you can just relate to that one thing. One thing is Slipknot's new masks. Corey Taylor's masks in particular is very relatable to someone, because I think one of the fans of Slipknot had I was reading an article about how this fan had he was a burn victim or something. He had something horrible happen to his face, and he had to wear this certain mask for a certain amount of time, and he faced, I think when he was a kid, when he was a child, he had something absolutely horrible happen to his face, and I think it burns, and he had to wear this mask, and he got bullied and teased at school, and now seeing this mask that Corey Taylor wears, it's now sort of like cool, I guess, to wear masks in bands. It's a gimmick, but not really a gimmick, you know what I mean? People can connect to certain musical groups and certain artists and certain bands and certain songs because of X, Y, or Z, and that, I think, is why My Chemical Romance will always be popular and will always hold a place in people's hearts, is because people can connect with songs that they wrote and performed, and same with Linkin Park. I mean, especially after Chester Bennington passed, their songs took on a completely new meaning. At least some of them took on a completely new meaning, and it's incredible how songs that were written by someone that only a very select few people got to interact with on a daily basis have brought thousands and thousands of people together from around the world. I mean, obviously for a very unfortunate reason, but these songs brought people together, and same thing with My Chemical Romance music. So their songs brought people together, and that is what music does. It brings people together that you would never think would be brought together, but here we are, talking about this music. So before this video gets too long and drags on for about another 15 minutes, I will end this episode, and I don't know who I'm going to be talking about next week. Probably Death Spells, I want to say. Probably Death Spells, but it's definitely going to be a band that Frank Iero had something to do with. I think definitely something that Frank Iero had to do with. So I will end it here. Thank you for listening, and until next time, rock on.